All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming to our alumni panel this evening. My name is Alex Ricciuti. I am one of the career advisors with the Malone Center for Career Engagement. We are happy to have several alums, an employer, and the amazing Dr. Cynthia King, who is going to moderate our discussion this evening. Oh, there's a cat. There's one behind you right now. Oh, we were talking about cats earlier. Excellent. That was a great way to start. Yes. Yes, Dr. Cynthia King is joining us from the Department of Communication Studies, where she teaches about public discourse, speaking, rhetoric, and media studies. She's amazing, and we're so happy that she's here to join us, and I will let her start off as well.
Greetings, greetings. I am so glad to be here. We were having a conversation amongst us, the panelists, just talking about how important it is to have alums or people, alums, employers, professionals in the working world to connect back with students, as with you students, as you plot out your pathways, you think about where you're going to go. You're just brimming with possibilities. I love what I do, because you as students come here as high schoolers. And then what's happening right now, even as you're sitting here right now, is you are growing and you are transforming. And by senior year, you are adults. You truly are. It's the best. It's the best thing. It's the most inspiring thing to see is that transformation, and facilitating that transformation and supporting that transformation is what academic departments do it in the classroom and intellectually, but the Malone Center supports you as you think very pointedly about your career pathways. We also have the internship office. And so we are so pleased that our panelists are taking the time to come back to be a resource for you as you think about, transitioning out of Furman or just envisioning the lives and the careers that you want and that you can have. And just by being here, I just want to commend you. Being here, you are doing the work. You are doing the work and taking advantage of the resources that we have. So without further ado, the way this will happen is I'll pose a question to our panelists, who will introduce themselves, and that's the first question. So again, I'll pose the panelists a question to the panelists. They'll answer the question, and then I'll pose a few other questions and get answers as well. And then we'll be sure to leave time for your questions before the end of the hour. So my first question is to ask the panelists to introduce themselves. Just tell us a little bit about your career path from Furman or from college. We have 2 Furman alums, but we also have an employer who is not a Furman alum, but we still want to know what your story is and what your pathway is. So from your college days, you can even start even pre-college days if you would like, but at least as early as your college days to your current position, would you sort of tell us your pathway to getting where you are? We'll start with Sam.
Yeah.
We'll go Sam and then Bethany and then Sonya.
Perfect. Hey, everybody. My name's Sam McCoy. I'm a graduate of 2017. For the type of panel we're having today, my degree might sound a little different. I was a chemistry major, so I had a very nonlinear path of getting where I was. I knew in undergrad I wasn't going to be taking the traditional PhD or MD route out of the major. And I actually went and taught in Greenville County schools for a year, actually right out the back gate over at Berea Middle. And after a year of that, I decided I wanted to move a little bit closer to family. So I went home, or not home to, but closer to home, to Austin, Texas, where my brother was living at the time. And I have a couple other family members down here. But in making that transition, I didn't really know what I was going to be able to get my hands on. Obviously, there's a lot of different things happening in Austin, not a lot of chemistry laboratories, and I was a little too late to get into a classroom. So I ended up landing a job at a place called the Gerson Lehrman Group, which GLG for short. That's probably only the third time I've said the full name in my whole employment there. But basically, it's a type of market research agency in terms of helping other firms derive answers from some of the resources we have available.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Bethany.
Hello, my name is Bethany Knapp, and I am a pretty recent graduate of the class of 2020, the doomed COVID year. So I also just graduated in 2021, so legitimately 6 weeks ago, from Furman's Master of Strategic Design program, which was based in Atlanta, and now it's about to be based back in Greenville. But I came to Furman as a studio art major, did that for about a year, and then was like, I don't know if this is the right path, more design. So then just totally took a different route and studied sociology and women's gender and sexuality studies, and just fell in love with it, absolutely loved it. And I really wanted to be a social worker, and that's what I wanted to do, or work for a nonprofit, or kind of be involved in that realm. And then, as Alex can attest, in January 2020, right before the world shut down, we went on a career trek with the Malone Center to Atlanta to tour different places kind of in the marketing and advertising realm. We toured BCG Brighthouse, and I remember thinking, like a little light bulb kind of went off, and I was like, okay, this is it. So then the pandemic hit, and after lots of thought, I switched my career path and was like, I'm going to go back to school for design. I'd only taken one class in design before that, so that was a real risky move, but it paid off. And I just finished my degree, and I interned with Brighthouse during the fall and was hired shortly after, and have been in my role, just finished, or I'm about to finish as of tomorrow, my 4th week. So yeah, that's me. I'm happy to be here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Sonya.
Hi, everybody. I wish I could see everybody's faces, but that will do instead. Now, my path is a little longer, Cynthia, so you let me know if I've gone on a little too long. And it's only because I'm older, okay? Which happens to everybody. So how did I start? So I always knew in high school and before then that I enjoyed drawing, I enjoyed magazines, I enjoyed creating, I enjoyed organizing, I enjoyed all of that work, putting shapes together, all of that. So as I got older, I was like, well, if I'm going to do something with this, I want to be self-sufficient. So I went directly into a design program at Appalachian State for my undergraduate, and finished there, and then went directly into Savannah College of Art and Design for a master's in graphic design. And immediately after that, what I did was how I found my first job. I created a promo piece. This is back when, there was not as much internet. So I created a promo piece. And I still believe it's a good idea, because you put something through the mail that's actually custom made and gives thought and is creative. That's like the best experience and introduction you can give to somebody. So I looked at places in the southern area, southeastern area that I had seen their work, and I knew I wanted to be in a design studio, not necessarily advertising. Wanted to be really focused on book design, music packaging, corporate design. So all of a sudden I got a call from a small design agency in Nashville, not Asheville, but Nashville, Tennessee. And I just got in my car and went, and take a risk. And I'd never been to Nashville before. And I just felt right about it. I mean, I walked into probably one of the best first job experiences. I think many people, I'm not sure, people have had a lot of great first job experiences, but it really was right for me. And I worked there for about 8 years. I then moved to an in-house department for Vanderbilt University and worked there for 8 years. I'm kind of a long-termer. I'm not going to age myself though. And then transitioned to a PR marketing firm that I worked there for quite a few years, and recently moved back to Greenville because my family, I'm from here, and my mom was getting older, and I really wanted to, I love Greenville. I've been away for a long time, and I was like, I'm going to go to Greenville and see if I can make a go of it here, first freelance as a designer, right? I was an art director, brand strategy person at my last position. And believe it or not, you never burn bridges, because somebody from Nashville got in touch, who actually I was her first boss. She opened her own design studio and wanted me to open a studio here in Greenville. So we have studios in Nashville, Kalamazoo, believe it or not, Michigan. They've got good beer there. And who's one of our clients, Bell's Brewery, I don't know. And then also we have one designer in New York. And so we're going to have a studio here in Nashville. And we do a range of, our focus is anything we do comes from a brand standpoint. So we do a lot of websites, but we usually go through a little bit of brand strategy, content strategy before we go into the whole design, visual part of it. We do, I can't even, a big range. We do corporate communications, we do collateral, brand positioning to brand identity. We do book design, thank goodness, which I'm really going to want to focus on in the Greenville studio. Yeah, I love the long form of design. But anyway, but all of our studios work together. So it's not like I'm just doing work in Greenville. I'm actually working on something in Philadelphia right now. And like I said, we have Bell's Brewery in Kalamazoo. And so we often do work, we share work. So
Cool.
That was a long story.
No, it was actually perfectly timed, because you're
Okay.
sort of segue and set us up into, you're getting into our next question so that we can give students a context. Is tell us about your company. It's, either an overview of it, its mission, its ethos, and then what you specifically do for that company. So
Sure.
Sam, you want to start, and then we'll come back around again?
Yeah, sure thing. The best way I can describe it is my company is Uber meets LinkedIn. And what I mean by that is we basically facilitate an exchange of services between people. So our internal LinkedIn type thing connects industry experts from a range of different backgrounds and specialties with our clients across a series of products. So that might be one-to-one consultations, bringing people in to go view, the way that medical products are used in surgeries, how Kevlar is made. And then my arm, less exciting than how Kevlar is made, helps with survey projects. So what we do is we help our clients who are coming in to execute different things related to any kind of concept they're looking to explore. So that might be looking into specific markets to determine who the key players are, differentiation of the players within that market. Sometimes it looks like message testing if they're looking to explore how to market a new product. All sorts of things, basically dependent on what the client's looking to do with their next step. Specifically within the role, I now manage a team of people who basically manage end-to-end projects for our clients. So that can be anything from exploring how, what's a good example that I can say? How Starbucks can negotiate a contract with Uber Eats, and then, someone looking to look at new designs for the sports drink they're taking out to market.
So your team would sort of answer those questions. Those are the kinds of problems you solve, or the questions that you have, and your team would devise a way to answer those questions, I guess, or to create a process for. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we help with the design of their research to help ensure that at the end of the project, they have the information they need to make a decision to carry forward. It's not quite a consulting firm, but it's an adjacent service, you might think. So once we've helped them with the design and then execution of their project, in this case, a survey, ideally we can then kind of help them determine whether or not they should go with option A or B, depending on what's derived from the data.
Yeah, I see lots of ways that your liberal arts education would be applicable and useful in a position like that.
Absolutely.
I mean, the research part of it, the critical thinking part of it. So
absolutely.
You're welcome, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you so
it.
much. Thank you so much, Sam. Bethany.
Yeah, so BCG Brighthouse is kind of like a consulting firm, but not. So the short-winded version is different brands, like anybody from Johnson & Johnson to Kate Spade to Mercedes-Benz. These are all people we've worked with in the past year. Ask us to come in and help them increase their social impact. So that can look like a lot of things. That can look like a total rebrand. That can look like helping their internal teams rediscover their brand's purpose. That's kind of our big thing, is helping brands discover their purpose so that they can do more good in the world. That's why I was really drawn to it, because I have this background in sociology, women and gender studies, and it really mattered to me that the job that I was at was actually making a tangible impact in communities. And so I get to work with a team of writers, strategists, art directors, film producers every single day, which is so fun. Such a array of different people from different disciplines and backgrounds, but all really awesome minds. And I really, really love my coworkers. It's one of my favorite things about my job. And so in my role, basically the strategists, they come up with all the content that we're doing for these brands. The writers, they're coming up with content. The film producers are, doing all the films. And then my job is to take all that information and basically make it really beautiful, so that when we take it back to the client, we take it back to the CEO and the board at Johnson & Johnson, we have this gorgeous presentation for them that is really beautifully outlined. Or I do that. I do anything presentations to, right now I'm storyboarding several films for Boston Consulting Group, which is our parent company. So I get to work with film producers on coming up with ideas for miniature films. It can be a vast array of things, but it's always different every day, which I really enjoy. And there's a lot of writing and strategy that I get to do, which is really awesome, because those are two things I'm also really passionate about. So it's different every day. And my company also has trampolines in the office. So I'll just drop that there. It's a very playful and strange environment. We do not take ourselves seriously.
What a great, let's pause on that for just a minute. You said something that really was important. When we think about pathways, we definitely think about, yes, getting a job and yes, getting a career, but also quality of life,
Yes.
Quality of life, and has to do with careers. And you said the phrase, you're doing something that really matters to you. Yeah. And so I just want students to know that you get to do that. There's a way that you can do well, you can do good, you can do that thing that really matters to you. And it just sounds like that's, in fact, that was a key. That's a key phrase.
Yeah. Before anything else, I knew that my non-negotiables were, I wanted to have a great work environment where people really respected your boundaries. We get off at 5 p.m. and we're done for the day. I wanted that. And I also really wanted to be able to make that tangible difference. Those are my non-negotiables before anything else. And if you stick to them, you can have them.
Yeah, you can. You really can. And it's not being narrow. It's not being selfish. It's not being unrealistic. But you really can. you have a lot of integrity, just a lot of integrity, and then again, just deciding that this is what I want, and also your story tells us that it sort of crystallized. You know, you did have kind of a pathway. You were introduced to an experience, or you know, an experience that where a light bulb would go off and say, oh yeah. And that happened again. I'm an academic, you guys, so I'm going to always bring it up. In the classroom, it's like, wow, what cool courses, what cool questions, what cool issues, the way that we talk about them. And I'm really stoked. I'm really stoked about this thing. And it sounds to me like, if we look at the trajectory of your career, at least up to this point, it was like classroom interest, you know, really excited about what it is that I'm learning, the issues related to what it is that I'm learning. Oh, they became a passion, and voila! Well, not as easy as voila. You've studied hard, you've gotten a graduate degree, but you ended in a place with a trampoline. So that's pretty cool. And
that's the moral of the story, kids.
Indeed, working on something that really matters to you. Thank you, Bethany. Appreciate it. Excuse me. Okay, Sonya.
Sure. Bethany, you mentioned something, you know, that you really wanted to go to a place where you could help companies find out how to do the most good, right? And we, one of our Circa mission statement, I mean, it's funny you asked this, because I'm working on our brand guidelines right now, and they're, you know, the mission statement and the vision statement and our core values, and everybody's like, oh, but I don't know. It's hard to boil down to its essence, but we, our mission, I think, as it stands right now, it's always kind of been around this, but it's to make creative count. Basically, what that means, what does that mean? It means that creative and strategy is a very important part of business, and we want to be involved in exploring that with the business that we're working with. We value our perfect ideal client is the one that places value on branding, which means figuring out who they are at their core and their essence, and then projecting it and bringing it out into the world. We also, one of our big things about our studios is that we value our communities. We believe in community building, which is why we don't have like we're not there to be the biggest place in the, you know, but we want to have a set of small studios that really love their communities. And Kalamazoo is that way, because, you know, Kalamazoo is a funky little place. Nashville is bigger, but they love their community and search out all of the businesses that are making a difference. We try to connect with them. We do a lot of nonprofit work. And Greenville, I'm hoping, is going to be the same way, you know, because there's a value in that small community, not necessarily small city, but finding your community, finding your tribe, and really providing a valuable service. And so I think that's I think that connects very well to what you're doing in the social realm, and however, wherever you put it. We also believe that, you know, ideas grow better together. So, and what that means is that we are in a collaborative partnership with our clients. We are not sitting there going, you need to do this, you need to do this. We take what they've got, we work with them. It's a very collaborative experience. So valuing what they bring to the table and not just prescribing is very, I think, a key part of what we do. So I could talk about our values. We've really narrowed them down to intentional design. I'm reading this from my brand guidelines right now. Creative curiosity, collaborative process, which I mentioned, and effective flexibility. One of our biggest things, and I don't know if y'all noticed this, but clients have been coming to us a lot about their internal culture. I think COVID happened and people started working remotely. And so now they're trying to really be aware of their internal culture. Like you said, Bethany, non-negotiable was they have boundaries. We have a lot of younger employees out of school, and that is definitely very much one of their priorities. They will do great work and be there and be responsible when they're there. And they create a great culture. We do a lot of internal stuff together, and it's been a big part of our studio growth as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Tell me, what qualities and skills and characteristics does it take to do your job, to really do well in your company in general, I guess, given its culture, but more specifically in your position? What does it take to succeed? Sam, we'll start with you.
It's a tough one to answer. I think probably where I find myself having been successful as a direct result of Lehrman is kind of like agility and ability to learn. Kind of the way that our company functions, we're plugged into a lot of different topics all at once. And so you have to kind of be able to engage in a new topic regularly and have like a collaborative, informative discussion with whoever's bringing that topic to the table. So that's the first. The second is we also have a lot of younger folks at our company. And so I think there's kind of a twofold nature. I'll answer this question. The first is initially you had to be not just willing and excited to learn, but driven to do it on your own and outside of what the role was asking of you, because I think that allowed for a lot of growth. In our position or at our company specifically, what that looked like is trying to engage more in the technical skills that you might not have had previous to joining the company. So that might look like basic coding. It might look like familiarizing yourself with research design, et cetera. But whatever it was, digging your teeth in and making sure you understood that. On the flip side, because we have a lot of people kind of at the start of their early careers, there's just a lot of learning that happens around just developing your own professional characteristics. So setting boundaries, determining what your professional personality is, and not letting it be kind of like a closed off robot, because that doesn't really lend itself well to actually getting in, collaborating and learning with one another. So I'd say now in my position, a lot more of my time is spent helping coaching people, the people on my team, into those different aspects of their own approach to project management and collaboration on the team. And also working with clients, of course, that's the big one.
So there again, it's going back to these characteristics that you can start to nurture and cultivate even in college. Learning, curiosity, and a lot of our students actually already have these: learning and curiosity. You talk about sort of professional development. There's kind of an academic development that we're now but there's a professional aspect to academic development, because you got to do the work. You got to do the work. You have to sometimes, yes, we impose deadlines, but you got to be a self-starter. So the idea of being intentional about developing oneself is what I hear you saying. And so students, that's what's going on right now. That's exactly what you're doing now. And you'll do more of the same in a different context. And you won't be graded per se, but there will be assessments, I would imagine. So thank you, Sam. Bethany.
Yeah, well, first of all, I had to keep a running list of things because I may be out of school, but I'm still very much a little student note taker. But I kind of jumping off what you're saying about being a self-starter, I think the first thing is you have to have a lot of initiative. So if I wouldn't have had the initiative, I wouldn't have been able to get the job. So I am very passionate about putting yourself out there. And what I mean by that is if there's a company that you're in love with and there's a job that you're like, I want that job, go get it. And that sounds really corny. Like, yes, it's not that easy, but like, email the people and be like, hey, I love what you do because of X, Y, and Z. I would love to have a conversation with you about how I could be an asset to your team. And like, it feels kind of like counterproductive. And I will say, especially as a woman, it feels very weird, like being that assertive and being that aggressive. But you have to honestly believe in your capability to add to a team. So initiative, and that will carry you very, very far, especially in the workplace. And I say that now, I've been there for a month, but I did intern first. So I digress. I think the second is also humility, always being like willing to have feedback, to receive it, to always ask your leaders, what can I be doing better? Or, hey, I really messed this up. I double booked myself. I forgot to do this item. Being very forward about that will also carry you really far instead of just trying to like cover it up or make excuses. Nobody wants that. I don't want that. And then I think you also really need to know your personal values. So, it's a lot different once you get in the workforce. There's, you can, if I was in a different role, maybe I could, work till 8 or 9 p.m. and nobody would be saying, hey, Bethany, log off. You have to know what your limits are in terms of how much you can give. And I'm still learning to be comfortable with that. I'm still learning like how to be productive for 8 hours a day straight on. It's kind of a learning curve. And then I think the fourth one I'll say is, at least for specifically to my role, playfulness. And that sounds really goofy, but my company, one of their top values is, it's called intelligence, having fun. It's one of our core principles. And so I'm a designer. So I am constantly working with colors and fonts and all sorts of things, photography, drawing, illustration types, all sorts of stuff. And if I don't have fun with it, I will not do my job well. So for me, that literally looks like going into the office, grabbing a piece of construction paper, grabbing the markers, sprawling out on the floor and doodling. Like, that sounds really goofy, but it is amazing how much better of a job I do when I do that, when I take the time to, go sit in the corner, put my AirPods in and listen to whatever dumb pop music or whatever it is that like gets your gears really turning. That really helps. And it's really fun to be able to be an adult and like sit on the floor and color. Like, I have so much fun at work, which is, that's not true for every day. I'll be real. As I'm sure everyone can attest, but like I couldn't do without. If I took myself really seriously and was just on my desk, like I have to be super, you can be professional and still be really fun and still be very playful and still, bring joy to your job and be around really positive people and be a positive energy source. That's just how I see it.
Wonderful. I think you're really onto something about just self-awareness. Understanding yourself, knowing yourself, observe yourself, knowing your boundaries and knowing your limits, getting to know yourself kind of as a worker. In the internship class, self-awareness is a big unit. It's a big part of the class. So we have tests. Alex will be in administering a strong inventory test, but then just kind of observing yourself in work and in workspaces, how you work, the best way you work, the conditions under which you're working and you're most creative. The other thing that you said was just initiative, taking initiative, which students can take, can start even now, especially now because there is a shortage of workers. The demand for good workers has outpaced the workers who are ready to meet that demand. And so when you have that slight imbalance, then you can leverage that for what it is that you want, but you have to do what as Bethany said, is like, okay, take some initiative. Just take some initiative. Visualize what you want and the job that you want, and you can take the initiative of going and calling again if you don't get someone, or if the person says no, to find out pathways or avenues into that field or into that position. So I love that. Thank you, Bethany. I keep muting myself. Sonya, finally.
I see you say it.
I know, I keep muting myself.
I'm prepped. Oh gosh. So I'm a creative director. So basically, I meet with clients. I do a lot of that groundwork. I prepare creative briefs. I kick them off with designers and get them started on the pathway. I help direct them, work with a lot of younger designers that are growing in their career. And Bethany, you are exactly right. What makes them successful is the ability to kind of take something and run with it. And I mean, I try to be, I know my responsibility in the project is to give some direction so they know where to start and kind of the mode and the tone and the personality and whatnot. But sometimes I've got so much on my plate that I can't always give them as thorough a creative brief as I want to. So what I love and what I've been so pleased with on several of the designers that I work with is, if they don't have all the answers just yet, they just start and they just start thinking on their own and they start saying, this is, we probably talked about it, but I might not have been as formalized about it, but I'll say, this is the goal, this is the objective of what we're doing. I'm wondering how we can do this and how we can expand their brand from kind of this staid position. They're trying to hit a new audience. So I'm curious how we can do that, and the ones that have helped so much are the self-starters and the ones that have jumped in not knowing all the answers and taken a leap and exploring. And you know what? I love to give a lot of freedom in the creative process. I may design something very different than what the designer may come up with, right? But my goal is not to say that doesn't look like what I would do. My goal is to say, wow, that does answer the question. That does pose a solution. And I love it. I love that you developed this, and it makes me a better creative director to allow that freedom. So I think, yes, that self-starting. I also been amazed at Circa. We have an education stipend every year that every one of us is supposed to use and go and search for new learning. And they love it. They totally support it and they expect you to do it. I'm head of our brand team, and we recently did a brand strategy course together and we reported on it, and it's just our goal that, we don't know everything. And especially in this business, with so many channels of communication, that there's always something to learn. There's a new software to learn. There's a new app to learn. And I'm just amazed that everybody just jumps on and figures it out and brings a solution or a new way of doing things better. So we definitely foster that education. And we have a lot of play nights. We have game night. We have, we do a lot of fun things together. So happy hours, virtual happy hours, book clubs. We have a lot of entertainment. And so joining in on that as well is because we believe in the whole person, not just the designer. Very different from how I grew up in the business. There were no boundaries. 60-hour weeks were nothing that was low. So learning curve here. I'm trying to learn to set some boundaries for myself as I get older. And I see young designers and I'm like, they're so healthy, Long gone is that creative person sitting in a dark room at 10 o'clock at night trying to make something happen. So that's always a good thing to see.
Okay, great. So one of my final questions is, what advice? Well, tell me something that you know now about life or work or both, that you know now that you wish you'd known when you were junior in college. Sam. You need to, and it's okay if you need to take a minute.
Yeah.
We can breathe, take a minute. That's such a big question. I guess I should have told you that. And when we first got on, that I was going to ask you to be a little bit reflective and philosophical.
Wow. I think I would say, and I'm going to get the word wrong because as soon as I said that in my head, I don't think that word actually exists. So I'm going to try and avoid it. Lean into the nonlinear aspects of wherever life is taking you, because that's where you're going to find the next learning point for yourself. And then also, life is going to throw you some curveballs along the way. So especially as we're thinking about like careers and employment, not only how are you going to respond to those things, but how is your employer going to respond in supporting you and the community around them through them? Especially as you can imagine, over the last 2 years, a lot of different national conversations are being had on a lot of different topics. And for myself personally, we had some family things go down for a little while, and it was very nice to be in a place that was investing in my continued growth through all periods of that time, as well as, I guess you could say, making sure that everyone at the company felt that they had a place that mattered and a job that was being respected by the company throughout the entirety of what you can imagine has gone down over some time. I don't think junior and college Sam would have understood that as much in terms of putting himself in a position where you had the agency to, manipulate your own environment. Meaning if things hadn't gone as well, I don't think Sam would have left. I think he would have been like, this is what employment is. It's tough. People talk about how hard the workforce has to be, but the reality is it's a two-way exchange. Your employer is paying you, and you are offering them services. But if the terms of that agreement are not in line with something that matches the life you're wanting to live, it's time to explore something else.
Great advice, Sam. That's super advice.
I wish I had talked to Sam earlier on in my career.
Yeah, it was great advice. So well said. Lean into the non-linear aspects of, I believe you said, life and work. Whatever comes at you. But the other thing that you said was agency. The idea of your own agency, that you get to decide what you're going to do. And you have some leverage when you're working in a company, that you don't have to. Certainly there are things that we have to do. There are hurdles that we have to overcome to get to where we want to go, for sure. Things that we have to endure and sacrifices that we have to make. But you also have agency and power and leveraging power. You can always pivot. You can always, find another direction, because life becomes a drudgery when you feel like you are trapped and you don't have a vision for where you want to go, even as you have to work hard to get there. Thank you. Great advice, Sam. Bethany.
Yeah, well, first of all, I would just say I remember, because it wasn't very long ago for me at all, like that anxiety of just not even like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. More like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, I don't know. I have all these passions that I'm like really into, but I have no idea how that translates into a career. And I don't think even though I knew I want to do something in the social impact realm, and Alex can tell you, I came to this office, I was just like, I don't know what this means. Like, I don't know how this actually works in a job. So I just want to tell you guys, like, it is terrifying to think about. I'm aware of that, but it has literally always worked out. Like, remember the anxiety when you were in high school and you were taking the SAT, the ACT, and you were like applying for colleges? Like, it was just pure terror. You're here now. Like, it has literally never not somehow gotten you to the next stage in your life. It will happen. I am living proof. I thought life ended after senior year. Not actually, but I was just like, what the heck does life look like? Well, it continues. Yay. Second of all, my honest to God life advice is write down your non-negotiables. And my mentor told me this. She was also a Lehrman grad. I don't know if Sam, if you ever knew Mary Elizabeth Morse. Yeah, she also worked at Brighthouse. She went to my grad program. We had a lot in common. I met her last year. And that's something that she told me when I was talking about possibly interning with Brighthouse. She was like, write down your negotiables. Is it money? Is it your work schedule? Is it your values? Is it working from home versus being in an office environment? And that doesn't just go for like when you're picking out, which job in particular. That also goes for your career path. So when I was, a sophomore, junior, and, thinking about other careers, I don't feel like it's stressed enough. Like when people are like talking like, do I want to be a doctor or do I want to be a lawyer? Think about what that life looks like. Are you the type of person who is willing to give your weekends? Is that something that you're okay with? Awesome. Is that something that you're absolutely not okay with? Okay, that's cool too, but let's maybe pivot and consider something else. Or just what are those non-negotiables that you want your life to look like? Because yes, work is a big part of life, but it is not life. Like when I come home at the end of the day at 5 p.m., I live with 4 roommates. It's us 5 girls in a house. Like that is my life. Coming home and being with my best friends and my dog and making food. That is my life right there. Getting to see my family on the weekends. Job is just something that can bring you joy during the week and make that money, but it is not your life. So just consider, what are those non-negotiables? What matters to me the most that I want in my life moving forward outside of Furman? And I think that really helped me. So I hope that is a tidbit of wisdom for you as well.
That's wonderful. Excellent advice. Let's just pause on what you said. It will always work out. It has always worked out.
Maybe not the way you think it will, but it will work out somehow, and there will be good in it regardless.
And you're still standing. And I love that you took it back to high school, right? It's like, well, reflect back on it. You're here, you're still standing. That is excellent advice, because you know that a lot of folks are getting, as the semester goes on, in addition to the work, they're just getting more and more seniors,
which is so valid,
more and more anxious. So, I have a saying in my workshop. It's my mother used to say it. Everything is always all right. In the end, if it's not all right, it's not the end.
Yep.
The other thing is, write down your non-negotiables. That speaks to what, it sort of aligns with what Sam said. You've got agency, you've got choices. Life doesn't just have to happen to you. You can take the reins and make things happen for you, but you've got to be empowered to kind of do so. I love the idea of write down your non-negotiables, because you know what, what's informing that is the vision that you have for your life and for your career. And then Bethany's just saying, okay, take that down and distill it into something that's really kind of specific, so that it'll be useful advice, information that you can use to decide yay or nay, this way or that way, or maybe yes or maybe no. So wonderful advice, Bethany. Wonderful advice. Okay, Sonya.
Yeah, thank you all for all your input on that. I've written down several notes that I've takeaways for myself. I had a mentor, and she, at this particular, at an earlier job, and she said to me, Sonya, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. And for all of us that are perfectionists, which I think most people that are designers or that have gone into this field, it's hard to know when is good, fine, and I'm kind of that. I have always been this way. Think about yourself as a junior in high school, or actually a junior in college. At that point, I was like, well, I didn't slave over this. I need to work much harder. I didn't push hard enough. There was always this reach for perfectionism, and even which can wear you out, because really you are your own worst critic. And I all wholeheartedly believe in pushing for better work. But I also feel that sometimes our perfectionist will not let us get to the idea of perfect. It's an internal critic. So for me, knowing that I've done enough and then putting it out there to discuss is good. And it's perfectly fine. So don't kill yourself, and find Lord knows if you're pushing for perfection, you're probably way beyond good anyway. So I think that like I said, we're our worst critic, and I think when we find that we don't have to push that hard, but we engage people in at certain milestones in, say, a design piece or whatever, it helps it get better. So, and you're not alone with it. So I think that would be a really important piece of advice that I could have used.
That's excellent advice. Excellent advice, Sonya, that they can use now. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Relatedly, try not to get paralysis of analysis where you're getting into your own head and you're analyzing and overanalyzing and you're just, immobilized. Another version of that is comparisonitis. I'm comparisonitis. I'm
yes,
comparing myself all the time. It's just like, yeah, I'm just not measuring up. I can't do it. They're so good. It's all of those, those things that get into your head. Sonya, you called it the internal critic.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be careful that your own, the voices in your head don't turn on you. What you got to do, though, is to turn that internal critic into an internal coach, right?
Yeah.
What does a coach do? All the things that a coach will do. It will remind you of your strength, tell you to practice, tell you to get up and do, frame your failures for you in a way that's constructive, so that you can go on and you can move forward. So wonderful, wonderful advice. So we have about 9 minutes left. I want to be sure that if any students have questions, then for me or for the panelists, that you are able, that you're able to pose them. And now is the time to pose them. Alex, do we have any questions or anything that you want to say?
I don't have any questions at the moment, but I will talk through a little bit. Thank you all so much for I've written a ton of notes myself too. I always find that these panels, I walk away with something, even being the mentor to a lot of the students. We do have a upcoming career fair, virtual career fair based on a lot of the work that the folks here do. That'll be next Wednesday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. We have 10 employers who are virtually visiting campus. You do not have to attend the whole time. We would encourage you go talk to those employers, much like you listen to these awesome folks talk to us this evening. And if you need to review this conversation, we will be posting it online on YouTube sometime in the next few days when we get around to it and we finish our post-production. I still don't see any questions, but I do have one for you.
I see one.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Andres, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Bethany, for the assist. What was the biggest surprise that you all faced in the professional world post-grad?
Good question, Andres. Good question.
This one makes me laugh because so many things.
Rent and taxes. Only kidding. But I don't have it quite yet. That was just a joke.
Okay, I have one. And it sounds goofy, but you will feel like you have no idea what you're doing. And the secret that no one lets you in on is that everyone else feels like that too. Like, am I productive enough? Am I doing this right? Am I asking too many questions? Yada, yada, yada. At least I'm still new to my job, so that's very much how I feel. I'm like, I literally don't know what I'm doing. You will always feel like that a little bit. But I think it'll ease. I think it'll start to subside. I hope. I really hope, because it's a little scary. I'm trying to think what else. But also, I think that I just was always really, really scared of what post-grad would look like, because I was like, as a very anxious person, kind of ADHD person, I was like, how am I going to sit at a desk for 8-9 hours a day. Like, how am I physically going to do that and then have any energy left in the evenings? Or like, how am I gonna be a functioning adult who pays taxes and pays their rent and somehow like remembers to pay the utility? Like, how does that work? I'm still kind of asking that, but somehow I'm getting it done. So answer to that is that it just somehow, like, don't worry about that for now. If you're freaking out about how that will work down the road, you will get the tools in your toolkit as you go along, one step at a time. You don't need to worry about it right now. You will evolve. It's like natural selection, not, but like you will toughen up as it goes along, and you will have the answers more and more as you go. I don't know, that was terrible, but that's what I have to say.
Good advice.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. I think I thought of my answer. So I realized Furman is the biggest place I've ever been. And what I mean by that is, like, I'm from Kansas. My high school was like 150 total students. Furman is a very small school in the South, but it's still the biggest place I've ever been because my company is still a lot smaller than Furman. And so I was so taken aback by moving to Austin, or really just any other city where it's so massive and you're exposed to this bigger world that you're like, oh my gosh, how do I tackle it? I think the way to tackle it is kind of twofold. It's building a community outside of the professional environment, like making sure that you are stable and good there, so that you have a way to release from whatever, might be troubling you in the workplace. And then in terms of community inside, to make the world feel a little bit smaller, find a mentor. There's probably someone 3 to 4 years older than you that can relate really well. I'm 5 years out, which is why it took me, oh my gosh, I'm 5 years out, which is why it took me a little bit longer to answer this question. But there's good people in the world that will help shepherd you into the world. So find who that person is. It can be at your company, it can be at your gym, or wherever you have a hobby. Find them, lean into them, ask them to get coffee. It's not as weird as it might feel.
Good advice. Good advice.
Good point. I'm trying to remember back. I think the biggest surprise was that I was more prepared than I thought. Once I got into my job, my first job as a designer, I was amazed. I was like, I'm not, Bethany, you talked earlier about the imposter syndrome, and still, I think we always run into this if you're creative or if you're in any job. I mean, I just think it's a natural thing because we're human, we always think somebody else knows more than we do, and they may, right? But you'd be surprised. You're as prepared as you need to be, and you're right where you need to be. Like you said, things will all come as you grow in the job. You don't have to have everything figured out. Just start.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to Sam really quick. Like, when you're saying it's not as weird as you think to ask somebody to get coffee, etc., I really want to just like emphasize that, because since I just recently came out of, like, how many years of schooling? 23 years of schooling. It is like the least I can do. It brings me genuine joy to be able to be there for someone who, just like Mary Elizabeth was for me, being a mentor and being able to kind of help guide me through that. Like, she just had a baby, and like now I get to kind of, I know Sam's like, what, she did? So it's like so important, and no matter what life stage you're in, to have those people that are just a couple steps ahead of you, so you kind of know what's coming and have that relationship with them. And I think that it brings a lot of meaning to me, at least, to know that, I didn't just go through that many years of schooling without being able to, maybe make it just an iota better and less anxiety inducing for someone else. So please reach out to people.
Yeah, I definitely, we are set up with, like, I have 2 younger designers on staff that I meet regularly. And we don't talk all about work, we definitely talk about everything else, but work as well. And I find it makes me feel better. I feel like I'm giving them something and helping them in their career. At the time, I probably needed somebody to help me, but didn't necessarily have that. So I want to do that. I definitely want to do that. And I want to make their transition to the working world better, so they can, be the best designer or the best strategist or the best writer they can be.
Great advice. Any other questions? This has been really great. Thank you so much for your advice and just sharing your stories. I know that it's been helpful. It's been beneficial to the students that attended and even to other panelists. So we're all part of the broader Furman community. Sonya, you're now part of the Furman community. You have Furman alums working for you, and you're now, engaged in Furman, the Furman experiential or engaged learning. That's what we call internships and fellowships and the like. So you're part of the community as well. And so it's wonderful when we come together and support one another in giving helpful and practical advice. Alex, I'll let you close us out if there's any other announcements that you need to make.
I don't have any other announcements, but we have asked each of these panelists if they would be willing to talk with students outside of this panel, and they have all agreed because they're amazing humans. So if you do need their contact information, please feel free to reach out to the Malone Center at career.engagement@furman.edu, and we would be happy to get in contact with them. But otherwise, thank you all for attending, and thank you panelists so much. You've all been great. We will talk to you all soon, and have a good rest of your evening.